Everyone, to an extent, is obsessed with capturing lightning in a bottle. Whether you're an inspiring musician looking to score your first of many #1 hits, or if you're in the office wanting to come up with that proposal that'll churn in millions and millions of doubloons, or you can just be thinking of an excuse to say no to your friend's invitation to go out because you're obsessed with isolation and being miserable. No matter the rationale, lightning in a bottle is an exciting prospect to work towards, but it truly only comes whenever it feels like it. Some shows may hit it once or twice and be a flash in the pan of the cultural zeitgeist, but then some shows are lucky to hit it over and over again and establish itself as one of the most prominent forces in the entertainment industry. Now in the year of 2024, where do you think SpongeBob lies on the spectrum? SpongeBob Squarepants will go down in history as one of the world's most famous and prolific cartoons to have ever been birthed. The show is certainly on its way to compete with legacies the likes of Looney Tunes, Scooby-Doo, The Simpsons, you name it. SpongeBob is more popular than all of those in this present moment, and this franchise only continues to rise and rise. As satisfying as it is to quantify all this impact SpongeBob has to one singular thing that propelled the series into superstardom, the reality check is that SpongeBob is here due to a multitude of factors from the hands of all kinds of people. Sure, some factors are more prominent than others, but it does take a village in almost every case. With that being said, it's a fascinating question to nonetheless ponder. What was the moment, the factor of all factors, the originating point that launched this franchise into the juggernaut we see today? I thought this would be a fun question to ponder, taking into account that again, SpongeBob's rise is due to a collective assortment of factors. I'd also be very curious to hear what your lightning in a bottle for SpongeBob might be. But for now, here is my thesis. The subject I chose as SpongeBob's lightning in a bottle moment that would go on to define the rest of this franchise is none other than pizza delivery. And it's not just because I want some fucking pizza right now and a drink. No, pizza delivery to me represents the collective traits of the perfect SpongeBob episode that helped this series go down as one of the most iconic franchises to grace our screens. It also is arguably the first episode to truly hone in on that winning formula that anything from the show afterwards that tries to leave an impact in the world of entertainment attempts to mimic. But what is it about this stupidly simple episode that does just about everything and nothing at the same time? The formula to the perfect SpongeBob episode is quite simple, a delicate balance between humor and heart, and pizza delivery is one of the most clear-cut examples of this balance in action. The episode starts off simple enough. The Krusty Krab is about to close, but Mr. Krabs can't help but squeeze every bit of profit he can out of his business, no matter how unfair and ridiculous the means seem to be. A customer calls in asking for pizza, and Mr. Krabs just immediately morphs his prolific sandwich into a generic pepperoni pizza, which he assigns Squidward and SpongeBob to deliver. And this is just a taste of the genius of SpongeBob. Simple backdrops that you would not give any more thought to unless you're a resident of Arkham Asylum. One of the show's greatest strengths is how it can take such a simplistic and strict concept and just expand it to some of the greatest examples of storytelling we have in animation, and pizza delivery really thrives in this area. But I'm getting a little ahead of myself, because of course, since we can dig deep, we gotta address the nonsense this episode takes us through much of its 11-minute runtime. I always found the scene where SpongeBob shouts, "Tire pressure!" to be one of the silliest moments of the show, but in the best way possible. The episode progresses into SpongeBob absolutely complicating the situation to extreme lengths from what Mr. Krabs initially intended, and the two find themselves stranded in the middle of nowhere with a cold pizza to deliver. Throughout their journey across the middle of nowhere, some of the show's most iconic moments would be birthed, such as SpongeBob freestyling a Krusty Krab pizza theme song that pays tribute to the great Louis Armstrong and Michael Jackson within the span of 5 seconds. They also survive a raging whirlpool, and we also got to witness SpongeBob enact the pioneer's call for help. One of this episode's true strengths, however, is how it just piles on stupid situation on top of all the stupidity it already has going on, and it builds up to a point where SpongeBob and Squidward are clearly tired and hungry from all this adventuring, and the pizza begins to look more and more scrumptious, euphoria-inducing, taste bud thrilling. I mean, gosh, I really need some fucking pizza! So Squidward finally breaks and tries to persuade SpongeBob to let him eat the pizza, but SpongeBob, being the teacher's pet he just naturally is, refuses in order to save that pizza for the customer. Squidward and SpongeBob then rough it out until they come across a gigantic boulder, which SpongeBob oddly thinks is drivable. And you know what? It is. And that is just the perfect way to cap off the comedic genius that was pizza delivery. I will say something about season 1 episodes of SpongeBob is that they aren't the most in-your-face, out-of-this-world kind of scripts when compared to the hilarity of episodes like Chocolate with Nuts. There's a subdued quality to them where it really eases you into the chaos that SpongeBob can get into. Even the colors are noticeably more muted compared to even season 2. But that's what makes episodes like Pizza Delivery work so well. It lulls you into a false sense of complacency and just completely sneaks up on you of just how stupidly hilarious things can get. The Krusty Krab pizza rap is forever ingrained in my brain, and I wouldn't have it any other way. But with all this focus on the humor and nonsensicalness of the episode, none of it would hit as hard as it does if it wasn't for the other integral part of the perfect SpongeBob SquarePants episode, the heart. It's the less commonly discussed aspect of these classic episodes, but nonetheless is an important part as to what makes SpongeBob so appealing to its audience. And while the majority of episodes sort of dab in a little bit of heart, let's be real, how much heart is actually there in Wet Painters, for instance? But you have the rare episode here and there that fully delves into one of the most heartwarming moments of the show, and Pizza Delivery does exactly that. This episode houses one of the most shocking tonal shifts of any SpongeBob episode, and while this is not the moment people will annoyingly recite like Parasite, such as a song, it is in my opinion the moment that hits you the hardest, and at least puts this episode at the forefront of your brain whenever you think about the best classic SpongeBob episodes. SpongeBob and Squidward finally arrive at the customer's home, and SpongeBob goes to deliver the pizza, but the customer is very clearly upset because the duo didn't bring over a drink that he allegedly ordered and has a full-on temper tantrum over it. SpongeBob comes back to Squidward clearly visibly shaken. I just have to make a note here that something that makes this scene extremely effective is that we never actually see SpongeBob's face when he breaks down into tears. It really showcases that the pain that SpongeBob is feeling is so insurmountably bad that us as the audience are forbidden from even seeing it. When you take into account how often SpongeBob cries in future seasons and movies and how it's shoved into our faces, it truly does make this moment hit differently. Squidward, in what's also a rare moment, actually feels really bad for SpongeBob. You can hear how concerned he sounds in his voice direction. I don't think I've ever heard Squidward speak in such a delicate way since this moment. So Squidward does what every retail worker wants nothing more than to do and walks his ass up to the front door, gets the customer, and slams that fucking pizza into his face. I want someone to slam pizza into my face right now. But okay, clearly this scene is bonkers, especially being placed after all the nonsense that came before it. And to be frank, most SpongeBob episodes do not go to this extent in terms of portraying a conflict. Most of SpongeBob really has this gloss of nonsensicalness coated over its more serious moments besides, to be honest, the movies. Pizza Delivery in the context of the entire franchise is quite insane because there are very few moments in the show that actually feel this real. As someone who worked retail for his entire high school and college career, what SpongeBob felt in this moment is an experience I know all too well, and also an experience I actively avoid as much as humanly possible. There's just nothing crappier than having to stand there and listen to a customer berate you over something that frankly probably wasn't even your fault. And with how plentiful retail jobs are in this world, it is a sentiment that so many people share. And the way that this moment is sprung onto the episode is as jarring and surprising as it is in a real life setting. No one walks into work expecting to be screamed at least not at first, especially for someone like SpongeBob who technically spends most of his workday in the kitchen away from people. And when it happens to you and it finally registers in your brain, it fucking sucks, especially when it happens to you for the first time, which is what's being depicted here with SpongeBob. And just a side note, I rewatched this episode and was reminded of how when I was a kid watching this, one of those nagging thoughts I had in my head was how the way SpongeBob was crying shows that his tears are touching the pizza box. And my people-pleasing brain couldn't help but think of the fact that if the customer changed his mind and wanted the pizza, it would be too soggy to sell. That is what I call mental illness. But even to this day, that thought still creeps into my head and just proves I'm always thinking about other people, even if they're assholes. I believe it's called lack of self-esteem. Another thing about this moment that makes it work is SpongeBob and Squidward themselves. So looking at SpongeBob first, he's clearly one of the most likable and cherished characters to have ever debuted in our media. But the reason SpongeBob is so appealing is that he represents almost the inner child that we long for, especially as we get older. That non-negotiable, eternal optimism that carries you through life on a cloud is a feeling that SpongeBob embodies almost 24/7. So to see a character as precious and likable as SpongeBob go through something so horrible really hits you hard if you have a single empathetic bone in your body. And like I said, the way that you can't even see the pain on his face during this transaction is heartbreaking and hits you in the face like a wrecking ball. But then we look at Squidward, who very much is the exact opposite of SpongeBob. He's grumpy, cynical, and honestly, extremely relatable the older you get. I think we all can understand the feeling of looking at your life, thinking, what the hell am I doing here, and having an existential crisis that you're going to walk through the rest of your life feeling unfulfilled and depressed. Squidward represents one of the most common and miserable parts of the human experience, and is honestly the last person you'd think would care about what SpongeBob is going through. But when Squidward actually lets out that he cares a little about SpongeBob's feelings, it really strikes a chord in me as someone who struggles between being a SpongeBob and a Squidward every day in his life. And it also reveals to us that maybe Squidward would like to be more of a SpongeBob, and that he is genuinely upset that people like that customer exist in this world to tear apart people like SpongeBob. This has gone down history as one of Squidward's finest moments, as despite all the nonsense and tomfoolery that SpongeBob puts him through on a daily basis, Squidward still ultimately has a shred of empathy and love for his neighbor, and is probably shocked at how much this exchange upset him. It really just gives you, I don't know, a little hope in the world? Is that too much to say? That even the worst people in the world can still be caring and empathetic human beings? I think I've droned on enough about this moment and was able to outline exactly what it is about this episode that makes it go down history as one of the most defining moments of the show's legacy. And I also hope it imprints to you that while humor certainly is a huge part of SpongeBob's appeal and success, it truly is the heart that people save for. And just because this is my channel and I get to be as annoying and shoehorny in as I want, let me present this view to you in a different way, using my favorite analogy for any video on my channel. The appeal of SpongeBob is in terms of how people are drawn in by the humor, but then become long-time permanent fans through the heart, reminds me of a certain global, record-shattering, iconic ruler of the world. I mean, we could go on and on. Taylor Swift is my favorite artist in the world, and as much as I annoy you all with my constant references and mentions of her in these videos, let me actually take a moment of our time to explain what it is about her that I, and to be honest, the whole world, is infatuated by, and how this actually feels very similar to how I feel about SpongeBob when it comes to episodes like Pizza Delivery. So when a normal human comes across Taylor Swift, it's probably through a couple common pathways. She has the biggest song in the world right now with a glittery chorus that just slashes onto your brain like a fruity parasite. She's in the tabloids for her dating history and countless theories on who or what her songs are about, or she's just walking around town looking sickening. What I want to outline with this information is how all this stuff is very surface level reasons for an average person to be interested in Taylor Swift. I liken this to the humor and ridiculousness of Spongebob Squarepants, and how the show's zany comedy and art style is what you'll hear most people talk about at the water cooler. Both of them have these huge larger than life personas that have taken the world by storm, that everyone and their moms knows who they are. But when it comes to Taylor Swift, why doesn't she just go away once that song falls off the charts like a bunch of other artists have? Why is she a constant presence in our world no matter what she does 2 decades later? This is where the heart of Taylor Swift comes in, and I'm just going to let myself rip. Taylor Swift to me is like a warm hug on all my sunny and rainy days. Whether I want to celebrate being a boss ass bitch who finally has his shit together, or if I want to disintegrate into a blanket because life is terrible, her music always brings me the utmost comfort and joy, and I feel forever connected to her as an artist. When I first got into her all the way back in middle school, I remember finding hits like Our Song and Love Story to be really catchy and fun. But then I would dive into her discography and relate deeply to songs about heartbreak and self-esteem, and that heart to her music and authenticity is what's made me stick around as a fan for all these years. And I see SpongeBob in the same way, and Pizza Delivery is not the sole example of this. Other ones I could think of off the top of my head are the Christmas special, Band Geeks, and quite significantly for me personally, the first SpongeBob movie. SpongeBob to me is my own optimistic inner child that desperately wants to see the positive in the world even when it seems like it's all lost. And I wake up every day striving for that sort of blind narrative, because you know what? I would rather believe that things can turn out alright and then fall flat on my face on the cold concrete than to have never tried at all. And in Pizza Delivery, SpongeBob tries and does exactly that. And while this moment will probably scar him for life, he drives the two of them straight back to work afterwards. And isn't that life in a nutshell? You just gotta get back up and try again. Wow. That was a lot. Thank you so much for watching up to this point if you have. Let me know if there's an episode of SpongeBob that defines legacy in the same way for you. I'd love to hear your thoughts. If there's also a show you'd like me to do this sort of prompt for, then let me know, because there's a lot of shows that have had this huge of an impact on my life. But I think by far SpongeBob is the biggest one, and also the one that I'm most excited to talk about. So I feel so happy to have finally gotten a video like this out. I just feel like SpongeBob has this insane quality to him that just needs to be discussed, and well, here you go. Here is a bit of a nutshell video as to why SpongeBob is so important to me. But anyway, y'all, thank you so much. This is Riders, riding out.